Yes, welcome to the Bleav Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. I know I said 4 o'clock. I know we've been late past couple of times we've been on.
We're just building the anticipation. That's all we do.
Yeah, we just want to build it up. We just want to let y'all build up, get into the auditorium and get your snacks ready and everything. And then
we know people arrive late.
Yeah. It was my fault.
We get into it. We're going to get into it. My phone's going off and everything else. Let's go ahead and get into this here. Bleav Panthers, the one from Charlotte's training camp.
Jonathan Stewart gets it, fights for more yardage. Stewart to the mouth of the goal line. Touchdown! Wow, that's just pure Stewart right there.
That's a big-time run by Jonathan Stewart.
Welcome to Bleav in Carolina Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Do you believe? Rate and subscribe the show on all major podcast platforms and subscribe to our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Video available weekly at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Do you believe?
And welcome
Another
to the Bleav Panthers podcast. A little rough start here for the second week of the season 5 here on Bleav Podcast Networks. I'm your host Desmond Johnson, joined by Sports Illustrated Panthers beat writer Schuyler Callihan and the Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart. You can catch us on our social media streams. This is on right now on our Facebook watch over at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. You can catch it on a variety of platforms, including the YouTube channel for Tobacco Road at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I'm about to share this link to the Bleav Panthers Twitter account here in about 2 seconds. So you can click the link from there and watch us from there as well. Fellows, while I'm finagling that real quick, what's going on? I know both of you guys have been super busy. Schuyler, this is like the beginning of your busy season because you got this going on. You got West Virginia college football revving up. Charlotte Hornets are in the news still. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, today's first day of fall camp for WVU, and we're about, 5-6 practices in for Panthers. So it's that time of year. The first, week or so, it's just kind of a little monotonous a little bit. But then once the pads come on, you start to hear the clicking and the clack, and it starts to feel like it's actually back. So, it's hard to believe. This time next week, we're going to be getting ready for the first preseason game. So this thing's going to be moving quick.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. The preseason week 1 is coming up here really, really soon. So
it's Hall of Fame game this week. So
football's back. We're literally at a spot now where we're not going to have a week without football until February, middle of February, something like that. So we made
if we're not counting the UFL, I don't know when their season starts, but
we didn't count. We remember we tried to do that and we just completely
we never came up with a team to back.
We did. So. We were supposed to pick a team. We never did. Stu, what's happening, baby? What's going on? How you doing?
I'm just over here beating the heat out. But yeah, I'm going to Clemson tomorrow. I'll be in Clemson tomorrow for all the Panthers.
He's filling in for us on that side.
Hey,
he's getting the recap and everything.
Yeah, I'll be getting the recap after I do some autograph signings. I'll be there with Thomas Davis and Musa Muhammad. So we'll be out there hanging out in Clemson. Never been to Clemson, so I'm excited to see what it's like. I might even run down that hill.
Oh,
careful now.
Valley. I think it's steeper than what it looks on TV too. So be careful, man.
I'm retired now, so
you gotta get the dab over on.
Yes.
I've only been to Clemson once. My cousin Jerry played baseball for them in the late '80s. He got drafted by the Dodgers, and we went to go watch them play his senior year. And the only thing I can really remember about Clemson is that there is nothing around Clemson. There's really nothing in Clemson but the university. And you'll know when you get there because the street goes from the double yellow line to Paw Prints, as it goes into the campus or whatever. Beautiful campus. So have fun in Clemson. Shout out to Thomas Davis. Let me know if you ask TD if we can come get some wings and do a show while preseason is going on.
I think he's down, man. Maybe sometime here in August. When are you supposed to come to Charlotte?
I think so. I'm looking at the calendar. I'm taking off next week because I haven't had vacation yet this summer, and my daughter's going back to school August the 12th. They're starting early this year, so I'm taking off next week, the whole week, and probably getting out of town for a couple of days or whatnot. We'll probably have an episode. We'll check on everybody's availability, but probably like Tuesday before I go. And then I think camp is lasting until, what is it, Schuyler? When's the last day of camp?
August 14th or 15th, I Bleav.
Okay, so if I come down, it would probably be the beginning of that next week, like the 12th or 13th of August. So it'll be towards the end of training camp. So we'll keep everybody posted on that as everyone watches the Panthers do what they're going to do. Loaded show today, doing something a little different called Schuyler's Take. Schuyler, out of the three of us, is the one that's been at these practices. He's been at the press conferences listening to the players, Dave Canales, Dan Morgan, all these guys. So each week during preseason, Schuyler's going to give me and Stu a little bit of positivity, something he's seen during practice, either as a player that's flashing right now or a group that's standing out or whatever it might be that he's noticing from this week for me and Stu to react to in terms of progression, because that's going to be the name of the game this year, is progression for this Carolina Panther franchise underneath Dave Canales. Retiring from the NFL, speaking of which, Stu was just talking about that he's retired. Rashad Penny, running back from Seattle that we signed earlier in the offseason, announced his retirement. We'll get words from Dave Canales about that. And we'll get Stu's take on what it took for Penny to get to this point. You know, having been a former NFL running back himself, the steps that he had to go through mentally to prepare himself to retire, you'll be able to hear it from the perspective of a former NFL player and a former Panther in Jonathan Stewart. Then our predictions begin for the different divisions. We're going to start in the AFC, and I picked the AFC North because I think it might be the toughest division in all of football. Why not just kick it off with a bang right there? We'll give our predictions on who we think might win that division. Maybe rank the quarterbacks. They might be the most loaded quarterback division too. Now I'm sitting there thinking about it. When you have a division where Deshaun Watson might be the fourth best quarterback in the division, it's tough sledding. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, it's open mailbag. You can comment on the show. We are live. If you're watching us on Facebook Watch or on YouTube, again, Twitter stuff, we're trying to get it straightened out with Twitter. Hopefully it should be back on before we're back for the next episode next week. Guys, before we get to Schuyler's Take, anything from this week that you want to clear out before we get to the positivity? Anything that upset you or, got you irritated? I forgot what we call it. It's the
I'm gonna tell you why we mad.
I'm
gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Anything that happened this week that might get you want to get it out? Want to just where you blow the nose?
Man, there's a lot that's happened this week, but it can get you canceled.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna let you know.
I just listened to something just like 10 minutes ago from CNN. I was like, oh my gosh! So I'm not even gonna go near it.
Yeah, let's stay topic. Well, I'll say this though, football related.
Okay.
Russell Wilson.
He's a hot topic on this show.
I'm mad about. Look, I love him. You know why? Because he's no longer playing for the Denver Broncos, and so now I'm back to this. Like I like Russell.
Let Russ cook.
Let him cook. Everybody is so hard on him about how he's a bust or he's this. My man put up better numbers than Jalen Hurts last year. Jalen Hurts. And we're sitting here saying, oh, man, the Eagles this, Jalen Hurts that. Like, we can't ignore the fact that Russell Wilson put up the same number. So why are we, treating this man bad? Terrible. I mean, terrible.
For you, it was personal. You didn't like Russell Wilson because of what he
the Broncos. I just didn't like he was playing for the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, it was a personal thing. But you respect his game.
So, and there's a lot of little things out there that are about Russell, and their people's experiences. I don't really know what that's like, but I know one thing. My man could play quarterback. So,
yeah, we know that.
So I'm mad about people, just chastising this man. And I can't wait to see what Pittsburgh Steelers do with him this season, because
he gonna mess around and find out and lose his job. He hasn't even practiced yet, has he? Like Justin Fields is taking all the first team snaps because Wilson's been out.
But I hate that. Like it's
and they don't really have to play him because they're not really paying him. So it's like if Justin Fields wins it out, then Russell Wilson might be a backup in Pittsburgh, which I don't think anybody had on their bingo cards when they signed them both.
No, we didn't. So hopefully things pan out.
So that'll be our tail end of our show where we're talking about the AFC North, because that'll pop up. We'll get into that with Pittsburgh and what's going on with them. I'm really intrigued about that. Schuyler, anything that's popped up this week you just want to get it out before we get into the nitty gritty of the show?
I think most of that will probably stay behind closed doors.
Oh,
there's a little always something,
there's man, it's that
ruffles
season.
the feathers a little bit, but I mean, when you work in this industry, it's just kind of what it is. You just got to keep plugging along. So
the only thing that sports related, and they're actually playing right now. Last time I checked, they were up by like 20. But the U.S. men's basketball team, I was on a tangent with them last week.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I gotta give props to LeBron. LeBron is doing he's 39 and he's doing this, but I don't like the idea of him playing well at 39 enough to push him past Jordan in the GOAT conversation. Yeah, he's playing great. He's got conditioning, everything else. Maybe you know, Scott, when was the last time he played 82 games in a season? Has he in a while? See what I mean?
Was it with Miami, maybe.
So
I don't think he
8
did
years ago,
9 years wrong.
But that's kind of my thing. Well, yeah, he probably can play all this because he doesn't play 82 games a season, and I don't think he has in like 7 or 8 years. I think it was only 2 years total where Jordan didn't play 82 games, and one of those he broke his foot like in October or whatever. So I'm seeing that kind of bubble up. But really, I was going to be more about people getting mad that Jason Tatum didn't play in the game before last. There's only 40 minutes in the game in Olympic basketball. You got 12 players on the team? I don't think Halliburton got in either, and you don't hear anybody talking about him not playing. But I think he started. I walked in late after the game began today. I think Tatum started. I think AD started today. It's fine. It's fine. They're up 20-something. Well, I better not say it because I haven't seen the score since halftime. But they were up 20 at half against South Sudan, who we were all clowning because they only beat them by a point a couple of weeks ago. So they've clearly picked up the juice. So I'm going to let this team do what they do. Yes, the world's caught up. We're still supposed to be better than everybody, so we'll see, what they do regarding all that stuff. Let's get to some Panther stuff. Schuyler's take. Preseason training camp started last Wednesday, so we've had about a week of preseason practices. No more mini camps, none of that stuff. We are in it. We are on the train. Schuyler, this is your time to shine. Me and Stu gonna sit back and let you tell us. Who have you seen in this first week that you kind of maybe took a step back and go, I didn't expect to see that? Like something really good, either from position players or group or something that we can kind of eat off of. So you're setting the plate here.
Well, and what player has shocked you so far?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is completely off the cuff. I'm unprepared because unlike, my fellow hosts here, I didn't actually read the script for what we're doing today. So what I'm about to say is like truly my thoughts.
I'm gonna tell you why we mad.
So I think the biggest surprise, and it's not really that much of a surprise of who I'm going to say because we're all seeing the same things that, the people that are there watching the practices. But like Jonathan Mingo, man, like he looks like a different guy. And I know it was only, 5 or so practices. We've had one practice with pads on, and it's really hard to tell because I feel like the further you get into camp, the more kind of information you gather about players and whether or not they're going to be able to actually be playmakers, contributors, whatever type of label you want to put on them. But everything that he has shown has proven that he's going to be somebody to be reckoned with. And I think he kind of gets lumped into that same boat, and we just kind of forget about it, with Bryce Young, and that he had a bad offense last year. The offensive system was just chaotic. He too, even, didn't really have that much of a guidance. He was dealing with all the drama on offense just as much as Bryce Young was. And I think we just look at the stats that he put up and just like, it wasn't that great. It was, second round pick that he should have done better, but that was a tough season for him and for everybody on that offense, especially for a rookie. I mean, he had his head coach for 5-6 games. So you have all that transpire. You have Deontay Johnson get traded in. You draft another guy in Xavier Legette, and David Moore comes in, who's a depth piece. And it's easy for a guy like him who came in with high expectations to kind of let his guard down and feel like, hey, maybe the organization doesn't trust me. He's done the exact opposite of that. He's busted his tail all offseason. He went to Cali with Bryce, worked out there, and it just shows. Everything looks slower to him. And I know that phrase probably gets thrown out a bunch in football. And if you're kind of confused by it, or maybe you can relate it to another sport, but like in football, some guys you can just tell when they're thinking, like especially at receiver, that's a big jump from college to NFL, and people don't realize how big of a jump it is. It's not just running a route. It's understanding a guy's leverage, understanding what the defense is showing you versus what they're actually going to give you. Is it, a too high shell that might end up being something else when the ball is snapped? There's a lot that goes into it. And he's just looked so much more advanced in every aspect of his game than where he was a year ago. And I'm going to say this. This might be a bold take, but it makes sense. He should be ahead. I think that Jonathan Mingo is trending to being that number 3 receiver right now, more so than Xavier Legette. And I'm not saying that as a down or a knock on Xavier Legette. I just think, Mingo's been here. He knows the NFL. He's been in it for a year. It's going to take some time for Xavier to get caught up to speed. We've seen it. He even admitted himself he had a bad first day of practice. He's bounced back from that, but there's an adjustment period. It's real. And every rookie's going to go through that. Jonathan's already went through that. I think he's on track. He's making the plays. Terrace Marshall's another one, too, that I think has done a really good job and has made highlight catch after highlight catch, whether it's the back of the end zone, the pylon, or he's toe tapping at the side of the sideline. He's looked good. This receiving core is much better than I have given it credit for, but rightfully so. I mean, like, every single one of us questioned it because there was questions with every single one of these players, even Deontay Johnson, who comes in with the drops that haven't been a problem in his past.
Stu, I'll let you go because I want to marinate on that for a bit because I've been seeing the stuff about Terrace Marshall and Mingo in particular from Schuyler's reporting. And they're both 2 year. Well, Marshall, this is year 3 for Marshall, right? Because Marshall came from LSU. Or, yeah, year 4 because he came from the 2019 LSU team.
This is make or break for Terrace.
Yeah, and then Mingo is what, year 2?
2.
Yeah, so they're both fairly young. Stu, your thoughts on Schuyler's comments on the wide receiver core and Mingo and Marshall in particular?
It's good to hear you say all those things about Jonathan Mingo because obviously we've been, following the Panthers on social media and seeing that Smitty has been a part of Jonathan Mingo's offseason. There's no question that this guy is way better than he was last year. And when you got someone like Smitty, vouching for you and showing up for you, you better take notes and you better listen and apply. Right, because otherwise it'll just be a waste of time. With
he can stick around.
You got Steve Smith here, a GOAT. Seeing some promise in you. That's the most confident recipe that you're ever going to get. Okay, so he obviously has worked his tail off this offseason, and to see him actually applying it, and you're seeing it right now in practice, the difference from last year to now, that's exciting news. And I mean, you better do so because they drafted a receiver in the first round. They traded up to go get this guy. So if I'm a player in that locker room and you're drafting a guy number 1 in my position, I'm going to work that day. As a matter of fact, I was already working. Okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Facts.
And what's really cool about all of this is that now you have this receiver room. You have this receiver room that's feeling the pressure. You know what I'm saying? The pressure is applied because now you have an offensive coordinator, you have a new head coach, you have guys in there that can actually teach guys ball, teach them how to do things the right way, and that's how you're going to get ahead in this game. And so it's really exciting to hear that it's all translating really well for him, but also for Terrace Marshall because he showed amazing, he showed promise 2 years ago, right? He showed promise, and last year just didn't really pan out. And so now he's going to have an opportunity to excel and show the league what he's made of. And, we'll see what the coaching staff is going to have to do from there because it's going to be tough picking if they continue to excel like this.
You said last week that you think they're going to keep 6 wide receivers, right?
Yeah, I think you got to because at the end of the day, Xavier Legette, there's too much right now. The addition of Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, I mean,
still got Thielen.
You got to keep 6 guys because you added 2.
Who do you think, just off the top of our heads right now? So Thielen, Johnson, Leggett,
Mingo,
Amir.
That's 5 right there.
That's 5, and then
Marshall.
I mean,
probably
depends.
or David Moore.
I feel like I'm forgetting somebody.
Who's the guy we got this year? Young boy, rookie.
Leggett.
No. Small school.
Coker.
Yeah,
it's undrafted. Yeah. Oh, ooh, yeah.
I think that's somebody to watch out for. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a guy that's a guy they went for, right? That's a guy that they accepted onto the roster spot. So if it's me, it's Terrace Marshall and him that's basically battling for a 6th spot.
Could they keep more than 6?
Yeah, because you have Xavier Leggett. He's going to be a return guy.
Yeah,
he's got to be a return guy.
Yeah, at least rookie year. He's going to start that way. It's not I mean, just show out. You know what I mean? Like,
and not saying that he's just going to be a return guy, but he's the roster spot is filled with.
Well, the one thing too
duties there
about Mingo is like everyone forgets. Like we were saying the same things about him last year as everyone's talking about with Leggett this year. He's big, fast, physical. He's an athletic freak. Like we were talking about all the traits that he had just a year ago, and everyone just kind of forgot about him because Leggett's the new toy in town. Like that's just how it goes. But like I said, I think Mingo, at least as of right now, is on track to get maybe more targets, more opportunities as the 3rd guy to Johnson and Thielen more so than Xavier. But at the end of the day, like they're both going to play. I don't really think, and Stu can attest to this, there's no such thing as really a wide receiver 1, 2, 3, or 4 in terms of, hey, this is how many targets we got to get each guy each week. But there's certain progressions and everything like that. They're going to take turns getting more looks and more opportunities. But Mingo is well on track right now.
If you're just not joining us here live, Bleav Panthers here. Myself, Desmond Johnson, Schuyler Callihan, Jonathan Stewart. Just chopping up first week of training camp for the Carolina Panthers. It's going on through, I think, the 3rd week of August, and then they'll finish the last the last preseason game, and then they'll get into the regular season first week of September. Just breaking down Schuyler's takes, what he's seen the first week of training camp that's maybe surprised him or something that stood out. Talking about the wide receiver core, and to me, this is the same thing. I think it got lost in the sauce a little bit. The ineptitude of the offense last year is the same thing we're talking about with Miles Sanders, where we were like, when we first came back and at the end of last season, we were like, maybe it wasn't all Miles. Maybe it was just Miles didn't have a hole to run through. And if you're a running back with no hole to run through, it's going to make the running back look bad. Like there's never anything there. So people were blaming Miles, like, oh, Miles is falling off, blah, blah, blah. But he's running into brick walls every day. You got to apply that across the whole offense, right? Like with the wide receivers. If Bryce isn't getting the ball out or doesn't know where the ball is supposed to go because of the coaching or the plays or whatever, those wide receivers are on islands to begin with. If they're running routes and they don't even know if the ball is supposed to come to them, and you're young at that, and you're trying to learn an NFL system, and there's 8 people in your ear telling you 8 different things, it didn't just affect Bryce. It affected a lot of the youth on this team. Mingo, Marshall, maybe some of the running backs, the offensive line, yeah, like I mean, all of it. So for when I hear all these folks that aren't Panther fans, they're like, "Oh, the Panthers are an ep, the Panthers are a dumpster fire, yada yada yada." Maybe they were, but I can't carry that over into this new regime because just from watching it's like night and day, like watching what they're doing, and I'm sitting here surprised we were so hyped at this time last year and just it completely ignored like, what was going on. Yeah, even after the first preseason game, we kind of brushed it off like, it's preseason. They weren't going to show much anything. Then week 1, we still tried to brush it. Maybe they were Shaq got hurt. It was crazy. It was a weird game, yada, yada, yada. By like week 3 or 4, I think all 3 of us were kind of resigned to like, damn, it is what it is. Like
favorite flavor is vanilla.
No vanilla bean, no creamy vanilla, no.
We're not getting in that drawer again.
No butter pecan. It's just vanilla. It's just straight up vanilla. And I'm shocked that we were able to be close in the majority of the games we played with all that going on last year. Because I don't really remember us really getting blown out by anybody.
Mm-hmm. And it's a few, but not very many.
Not very many. Like in the NFL, it's really hard to blow out anybody in the NFL, to be honest.
It just felt like they're out of so many games, even when they were down 7 or 10, because you knew the offense couldn't do anything.
It was that feeling. I buried that feeling where it was like, and we started talking about it. Like if they got down by like 10, it was a wrap.
It's funny because me and Sheena quick, Vashti hurt. We all sit like right in the same spot in the press box, and it was funny because every home game we'd bring it up. They're typically last year they were in the game at the half, and it didn't take very long into the third quarter before the other team took the lead, and we just kind of looked at each other like, "That's it." But I mean, when you go back to like everyone talking about like how there's 8 different people's voices in Bryce's ear and this rookie's ear and all that such, like just trying to compartmentalize it. Like it's easy just for a fan to say, well, just tune out all that stuff when you go on the field and just do what the play tells you to do. You can't really do that because in the back of your head somewhere, you have Frank's voice, you have Thomas Brown's voice, you have this person's voice and that person's voice, and you're trying to make sure
sacked 3 times a game.
Yeah. And David Tepper's throwing drinks on people up in the stands while this is going on.
And you're trying to make sure
hey, man, that's in the past, man.
And you're trying to make sure that when you go back to the sideline that you're not ticking off your quarterback's coach or your OC or your head coach. You want to make all those people right, but if they're not all on the same page, someone's going to be pissed off every time you go to the sideline. So you're trying to figure out, okay, which situation is going to get me in the least amount of, butt chewing. But it's a hard situation.
And overseeing it all was Frank, Grandpa Frank, just kind of letting the grandkids go wild in the front yard. But that's what I'm saying. There's so much of a difference. Just the little things of being like having a schedule, like knowing where you're supposed to be.
They're very, very detailed.
Footwork, just little things that they concentrated on from the very beginning. Like that was the thing I really liked about Canales was that he didn't feel like he needed to rebuild Bryce, but in a way he kind of came off like, I'm going to rebuild Bryce Young because I know what he can do. He's got the talent. He's a former Heisman winner. I wanted to draft him when I was in Tampa Bay and we just couldn't get to him. The very first thing he started working on with him, it looked like, was his footwork and his release. Footwork, get it out in 2.7. And what's happened since he's really started to focus on those two things? Wide receivers are getting open. He's throwing people open, which he couldn't do last year. The offensive line doesn't have to worry about where he is behind him because they were doing that a lot last year. They didn't know where he was half the time, and they were getting pushed into him. All of it's just kind of building, and it goes to what you're saying with these wide receivers, that now the wide receivers can feel comfortable in their routes, knowing the ball's going to be there before they are. They just got to focus on their job, create separation, get out. You went out and got somebody like Deontay Johnson, who had the highest separation rate of all wide receivers in the NFL last year. You made a point. You came in, you said you wanted to do this, you're going to do this, and then you actually did it. Whereas last year they said they wanted to do stuff, and then they just never did it. And we sat around waiting for it. So we've been tentative. But I'm about to release all that for this year. I think I've seen enough where I'm like, I don't want to be tentative. I want to be super positive about what I'm seeing because Panther Nation needs it. Like we haven't had a winning season since 2018? This is
before me. It predates me.
This is 2024. I haven't had a winning season since I've hosted the show. This is year 5. So yeah, 2018 was the last.
Your point with Dave Canales, our Buccaneers publisher on SI, he was telling me like the moment Dave got hired, he called me and he was telling me like how great he was, how good of a person he is, and how he's very detailed. And the one thing I remember from that day, and I was trying to picture it in my head what it's going to look like when we get to training camp, and I can see it. I even saw it back in the spring. Is he meets players where they're at, and I think I brought this up before on the show. Like, yeah, of course, Bryce fell way short of expectations as a rookie for a number 1 overall pick. We get that, but most coaches that come in, if they see that and are like, "Man, I've got to get this guy caught back up and then some because this is really where he should be." That's not what Dave views his situation as. And that's not what just with Bryce. It's anybody. You could say the same thing about Miles Sanders last year. Mm-hmm. He had a disappointing year. He's not trying to get him caught back up. He's taking these guys where they are and building on what they need to build on to be successful or fixing the issues that they had last year. It's not trying to play a constant game of catch up. You'll always lose that.
It's just like gumbo. You ready for this?
Yeah. Now, you got me hungry last week when we started this path.
Oh, listen.
I literally went and got some chicken.
What makes gumbo taste good?
I think it's the melting of all the flavors together into one.
Seasoning.
Yeah, the seasoning.
Seasoning. Yeah.
The right seasoning.
So Dave Canales is basically coming in here and giving, these guys on his roster seasoning. Okay. And in retrospect, you might think to yourself, oh, the extra stuff, right? No. In gumbo, that's the base.
Yeah.
If you ain't got seasoning, I don't want it. Don't even give him. I don't want to
plain chicken and sausage in a bowl.
Right. Like we need a little bit of extra dust.
Yeah.
Okay. And that dust is actually the base. It's the bottom tier. It's the foundation. Okay. And so that's what he's been preaching, right? Foundation. It's all about the ball, right? And for a quarterback, hey, it's all about your footwork right now. We're gonna get this footwork, and then we're gonna get to, adding the corn, adding the sausage. But first, we're gonna get this dust in there first, all right? So that way, that dust can get all in the inner workings of all the the ingredients, man. I'm telling you, dog.
We'll start calling Dave Canales Old Bay or something, like, because he's the
Old
season,
Bay.
right? Yeah,
He's the season.
Old Bay. We run across Coach Canales, but we created a new name for you. You're Old Bay because you're the seasoning that this menu needed to fuse together. And some of our fans that are in here, shout out to everybody that's on. If you're on Twitter looking for us, and you normally look for us on Twitter. There's a whole situation going on with Twitter Premium, and we didn't know. I registered this morning. I'm waiting for the bots to approve it, so we get the check and all that stuff. And then the video will be back on Twitter, so we should be back by next week. But the link to the YouTube channel where this is live is on the Twitter for Bleav Panthers right now. So if you're trying to get to it, just go to my Twitter account or Stu or Schuyler's and click on that. It'll take you to the YouTube thing where most people are in today, and they're making comments here with us, as you can do live every week on Bleav Panthers. Some of the fans that are in the group talking about Miles Sanders, another one getting hyped from camp from Mark Burks. What if it really was coaching last season and this team is better than anyone thought? I've been thinking about that in terms of what's on the roster, like talent-wise. This isn't a bottom-of-the-barrel team. Like, they bottomed out not because they had a lack of talent. They just had a lack of, focus, I guess, or a lack of direction last year, going back to what I was saying before. Other than the Miami game that got away from them, and I think one towards the end of the year, I don't really remember them getting blown out a whole lot, which is a testament to the defense, which they kept everyone from the defensive coaching staff. They might have got rid of Burns and Luvu left, but I think they replaced them pretty well. So we'll get to the NFC South at the end before we start the regular season, but I'm not as concerned as I was at the end of last year about them making some noise. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to make the playoffs yet, but they ain't going to be a pushover either. They ain't going to lose every game by 20 points and stink up the joint, or we're not going to be ashamed to say
you
we're
better
part of
find some
Bleav
wood to knock on.
I don't think I'm gonna be ashamed to be like, yeah, I'm the host of Bleav Panthers. Like, towards the end of last year, it was like, yeah, I do a podcast for
hey, I mean, y'all remember the Texans, the guest we had on that.
Yeah, we had them come through and they just tried to disrespect.
They're clowning all over this show.
And then for some reason, that's the 1 week the teams could not score. And we went, what was it, 9-6 or something like that? Was that game? It was
that
was a weird
the only
game
I didn't get to go to last year.
That was a weird situation. Let's move on to we talked about it in the beginning of the offseason, how they were committing to run the football, which is what the Panthers are known for in their 27 plus years of existence. Run the football, stop the run. That's Panther football. And we kind of got away from it the past couple of years. But one of the running backs that they brought in was former Seahawk running back Rashad Penny. And this week it was announced that he was going to retire as opposed to come into the game. I pulled this video from David Newton over at ESPN. It's Coach Canales on Penny retiring from the NFL and his thoughts on it.
Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny has decided to retire. It's a really cool opportunity for me to see. I know Rashad at his best. To see if we could get him to that kind of look. And he came up and he just felt like he wasn't himself, and I had to respect that, going forward, just for him to, I don't understand what that's like, to have a feel, to have a vision, and to wanting your body to do exactly what you tell it to do and just not responding the right way. So he for sure I was glad to be a part of this process with him, just because I've known him for so long. And I wish Rashad the best.
So I heard those comments and I was like, man, what is it like at the time, for an NFL player when they're grappling with this and going through it? I'm like, lucky me, I actually know someone who was an NFL player and actually played this position at running back. It's my good friend Jonathan Stewart. So I'm like, let me ask Stu, you went through a situation like this where you had to kind of grapple with retiring or continuing to play, and if I'm not mistaken, Penny had some injuries here the past couple of years and that kind of thing. Walk us through what you went through when you were deciding to finally hang it up after playing, for many years. It's not just the NFL. So you're retiring from something you've been playing since Pop Warner, right? Like since you were a little kid.
Yeah, man, it's tough. And I mean, for him to come to that decision year 6, obviously he's experiencing things that doesn't sit well with him. Obviously he's an elite competitor. He's had, some challenging years, over the past 2 years or so. And it's a yucky feeling. And also a responsible decision. Because at the end of the day, yeah, he's retiring. We've seen many people come out of retirement. And so I think this is an opportunity for him to just go and take a break, give himself a mental break, give himself an opportunity just to take a step back and just reevaluate. Because I Bleav that he's 6 years in the league. 6 years in the league, he's still young. He's still young.
He's not even 30. Yeah, I think he's like
so. Hopefully, this is not the end of the road for him. Obviously, retirement is, what it is. And right now he's basically saying, hey, look, Carolina Panthers, I don't want to hold y'all up. I don't want to hold myself up. I don't want to put myself through this right now because I am not where I need to be. And for me, it's different. It was a little bit different because I knew for probably 2 years it was coming close, right? I mean, I had Christian McCaffrey come in, and I was like, wow, I can't do that. I can't run those routes. Even if I told my body to do what he's doing, I will hurt myself, right? And then I went to New York, and we had a guy named Saquon Barkley. I'm like, wow, he's like the same size as me, but he's acting like Odell Beckham. Like how is he able to go and jump that high off of one leg and come down, make a cut, a jump cut off of one leg? All these types of things that I'm seeing that I had to be real with myself. And it's a hard thing because again, you play this game your whole life ever since you were in 3rd grade, 4th grade, organized, right? And you're so passionate, right? And you're not really sure what's to come after. That's the scariest part. When you say I'm done, it's a little bit easier to say I'm done than to really face what's next. And that's what is hard about retirement, especially at a young age, because, guys are in their 30s and their 20s, and you're saying the word retirement, I have a lot of life to live.
Yeah.
Right. There's a whole nother career probably out there for me if I chase it, but I don't know what it is yet. And I don't know how to operate in that. I've been operating in football schedule and football mindset in suffering, right? You talk about passion. The definition of passion is basically I'm willing to suffer for this. That's how much I'm passionate about football. And so how do I find that in something else? How do I build that? How do I chase that feeling and something else? And that's the most challenging thing about retirement. And hopefully, like I said, man, I don't man, Penny he got elite numbers. It's right there. It's the numbers don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's saying that he can't do that, then kudos to him and honoring his body and his his future, and just kind of, just taking it upon himself to do what's right for him, for his mental stability and all that. Because it's tough being in a position where people are expecting you to perform and that you're not going to be able to meet that expectation. So hopefully he gives himself another shot if he's able to recover, over some time. But we'll see.
Take us behind the scenes a little bit, Stu, of when you made that decision. Like you said, you knew it was coming for a while, but when you actually sat down and were like, all right, this is it, I want to submit my paperwork to the league. Like, what was the emotions behind it? Like, how'd you tell your family, your friends? Like, I mean, what was that moment like, and what was like that next step for you after retirement?
Yeah, so I got hurt in New York. I messed up my foot on like a 1 yard gain or a 1 yard loss. It was like that was my last carry, right? And Tyrann Mathieu actually tackled me in Houston.
Honey Badger.
It was an inside zone, and I kind of bounced it to the mid zone landing point, and and I got hurt, and I was like, man, this might be it.
Because you already had it in the back of your head already, right?
Yeah, I kind of had it in my back of my head, like being able to see guys like Christian and Saquon, like, wow, this is what elite looks like. And I don't have that right now. And so getting injured and then, sticking around the facility, going through rehab, being, the OG in the locker room, giving guys insight, in meeting rooms, was basically the rest of my season. Getting back to Carolina, my agent, was basically like, hey, so what are you thinking? As far as, playing still. And I'm like, I don't think I want to play. It was really as simple as that. It wasn't really a moment in time of me like realizing I'm about to call retirement. And so what we did, me and my wife just basically announced it, right? We announced it through our Charlotte Lately platform that we have here in Charlotte. And the Carolina Panthers reached out and said, hey, we would love to, sign you for a day. And I think when they reached out, that really that gave me some emotion. That gave me some emotion, some realness. And what it did, it gave me some closure. I think that's what's really cool about them recognizing a guy like myself going into retirement, seeing that I played 10 years for them and was passionate about and still passionate about the Panthers, and 1 year in New York, and seeing that, hey, this guy committed a decade to us, and let's send him off the right way. And so I think the blessing in all of that was I was able to have closure, because if I didn't have that and I just said, hey, I'm done, peace out, like, who knows how that would have actually transpired down the road. Like, hey, I
don't think you'd be leaving Panthers house. I don't think this would be going on.
Yeah, I think I would probably have a different feeling towards football, to be honest.
Yeah. Because
when I played, I played the game. I never really watched football games on TV. I just watched film. I was a football guy, film guy, not a TV copy what's going on, stand up to date with the latest and all that. I was never that. Now I am, because I was able to close the door on a chapter of my life the right way, which the Carolina Panthers offered me that opportunity. And so they reached out, retire as a Panther. I was able to go out to a practice, and during the time, Greg Olsen, Christian McCaffrey, Shaq Thompson, Cam Newton was still there. And I went out there, they, presented me a jersey. And it was just really cool to be able to be amongst guys that I played with and them send me off into retirement. And so not a lot of people have that opportunity, man. And, I'm really blessed to have that. But when I gave my retirement speech, again, it was like, because you're thinking about the hills that I ran back in Olympia, Washington, behind my house. You're thinking about the early morning jogs to practice, the early morning, weightlifting sessions, the Saturday morning running in the dark at 4:30 in the morning on the football field, acting like you're getting chased by defenders just because you're like trying to create this awareness of football and the field and your footing and all these types of things that I just think about from, childhood, going through high school, all the things that I, overcame in college, injuries, all the great teammates that you come across and coaches. So there's a overwhelming sense of emotions when you do have that moment. And I was able to have that moment in a healthy way with closure. For some guys, they have that moment and it's 2 years after retirement. Yeah. Sometimes it's never, and so It's a big deal when you're talking about a guy going into retirement. So if you know guys that are in that situation, reach out to them, show them some love. Definitely show Rashad Penny some love because he's a hell of a player, man. And he definitely needs some encouragement. I know a guy like him probably wouldn't say it or whatever, but fellow NFL brothers out there, reach out to your guys, man.
That's the biggest thing. Like with every player, whether it's NFL or whatever sport that I've talked to, and I mean, even me, like I obviously didn't make it to the major leagues, but I mean, when I knew that I was done playing baseball, like that, when it's ripped away from you or you remove yourself from it, it's the hardest thing to get over. And it is kind of like a mental challenge, because that's all you knew for how many years. But the one thing everyone always comes back to me is it's always about the people that you were with. It was always the teammates, the coaches. Those are the times that you miss because you might feel like it's a little monotonous or you're just kind of going through the motions. You're killing time in between practice and, a film meeting or whatever the case may be. But that time where you're just chilling in the locker room and you see guys hanging out, just eating whatever for lunch and just playing cards or whatever, like those are moments that guys are never going to get back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's
fights at practice, stuff like that. Those are camaraderie building moments.
and then making up for it the next day. Like that's the whole part of it. But one person you did mention, I want to get this in here too. Cam needs to have this for him too. And TD talked about it, I think, on his show 4th and 1 last week about how he needs to have his moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cam needs to have whenever that decision comes. We're not trying to force him.
Yeah, there needs to be a parade.
The city's waiting.
The
state
Carolinas.
Is waiting. Yeah, the whole region's waiting for him to just officially announce he's retired. And he's pretty much kind of said that he's pretty much done, but he's left the door open in case somebody calls and it's the right situation, that kind of thing. But really, his last couple comments about it, the past year or so, sounds like he's not resigned to the fact, he's content.
I think he's at peace with.
Yeah, he's at peace with it. He's got all kinds of stuff going on, media-wise and everything else. So he's finding ways, I guess, to fill that bubble. But like Stu said, you're never going to completely fill it up with something else because it's really your first love. You've been doing it since before you knew how to do anything else. And
game.
And then now all of a sudden,
baby.
All of a sudden you're doing something completely different. And some people got to figure it out what that is. So I totally get that. I was going to mention that about Cam. And that the city, the state, the region, they're waiting. Something that Stu said, though, when he was talking about the Giants, it ain't got nothing to do. This GM that's there now wasn't the GM when Stu was there, but that was something I totally forgot about.
I'm going to tell you why we mad, son.
I do not like the GM for the New York Giants. Like, I do not like him at all. Like, I've been watching the Hard Knocks. Yeah. Like, he just seems like he's out of his element or something.
How he did Saquon.
Yeah, how he did Saquon, how he handled we haven't even done the draft yet. I guess the draft was last night. So, or for them, their draft show. So I got to watch that tonight. But just the way he's been handling this stuff in the back, like, I think the owner, Mara, when you see them having like interactions, like there's sometimes where Mara just kind of like stares at him and just turns around and walks out.
Like, why are you here?
Like, what are you doing? And like, he'll say something like the GM for I can't remember his name. It's John something, I think. I can't remember, but he'll say something kind of to appease Mara, or he hopes to appease him. It's like, well, we're either going to get a quarterback or we're going to have to roll with Daniel Jones. We're just going to get him a bunch of weapons. And then Mara will just be like, and he'll turn around and just like walk out.
You said that on TV, you idiot.
All of it's on television. It's like, this shouldn't have been a part.
There's a camera right there, and you said that. You chose to say that.
Like, if I'm an NFL team, I would never agree to do this portion of Hard Knocks and this part of the season, like when they're actually building the team like this. The way the Panthers do Blueprint, where they're showing it, but it's like from their viewpoint, and it's
team control. They know
you're not seeing the bad stuff. HBO is showing everything, and I don't know if the Giants thought that was going to happen, because this is not the same as like preseason Hard Knocks. Like, I assume they're not going to be with the Giants for preseason Hard Knocks, are they? They're going to be with I think it's the Bears.
Wow.
It's either the Bears or the Jets. I can't remember which one it is, but no, they were the Jets last year. So I don't know who it is, but I mean,
they even leaked their board.
It
wasn't just the board. Like, you can have board leaks all over the place, but when you have the color coding being leaked, like when they have flags for guys with character issues or whatever, like, I mean, most people, when it comes to character issues or injury, like, red flags. Like, they all have pretty much the same stuff, but you don't want that stuff to get out there. I mean, especially to protect the players. Like, some of them, they just may think there's a character issue, there's really not, and then all of a sudden this kid's going to get labeled that he's got a character issue.
Remember Star Latulele, the big knock with him going to the draft? He had like the heart issue or whatever. Has he ever had any issue with that whatsoever since he's been a pro? I don't think he has, not one bit, in Carolina or Buffalo. So stuff like that. And you're right, it was kind of blurred, but the color stuff was still there. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's not supposed to be on TV. Like, why is that on TV? It's like right there. It's like the whole screen is like their draft board. And then their free agent thing, how they went about. It's like the mentality of what they were doing to go about free agency and their thoughts going into it. We're not supposed to know that. And like, we know all of it. So I'm expecting the Giants to go like 5-12. It's not good. It's not
in some
good.
ways, if you think about it, it kind of puts like whoever that organization is at somewhat of a disadvantage, because it shows your way of thinking in terms of roster construction, you know.
Yes. Think about midseason when they got to make some moves or whatnot. You just watched all this in the beginning. You know how they tick. You know what they value over other positions or whatever. You can use that to your advantage. So,
yeah,
shout out to the Giants. I don't know if this is going to help y'all in the NFC East, but we're going to move over. Go ahead.
Hold on. How's my boy Chuba doing?
Oh,
he's looked pretty good. I mean, the run game is so hard to tell with just shells. Like, it's. I
mean, they had pads yesterday.
I mean, they did.
First day, right? Yeah.
It was good. He and Miles have had some interesting moments. I'm still on the thought that Miles is on a tear to get that job back. I'm not saying that he will, but I think a lot of people were just writing him off because of last year. But I mean, Chuba, I think has kind of solidified himself as maybe the favorite going into the season to be that guy.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to keep it an hour because I know our Instagram cuts off at the hour point. So I want to get to AFC North predictions before it cuts us off here, and we'll just kind of hit them light because we still got to do our infamous pick our win-loss record for the Carolina Panthers episode that we'll get to. I need to see him before we do any of that. So probably, I think around like week 3 of the preseason, we finally start going through them. So we'll do that. But AFC North. Before we predict the team that we think is going to win, this is Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and who am I missing? Baltimore, Cincinnati. Who's the best quarterback in that division? Because I think this is the toughest division in all of football, in my opinion. People clown Cleveland, including myself, but that's not a bad team. They got some talent in Cleveland. They just gone through some things where they haven't had their quarterback available. If Watson's fully healthy, now we haven't seen a top 5 the Deshaun Watson quarterback since since before COVID,
where all that stuff went down.
Yeah, 2019.
The answer is A, Lamar Jackson.
So you take Lamar over Burrow?
Ooh.
Only reason why I'm saying that is because Burrow got hurt last year. He's coming into this season off of an injury. And so
Lamar they did add Derrick
Henry. You'd be a fool to say, oh, Joe Burrow. Well,
I'll be the fool.
Right. That could be right in theory. It could be right in theory, but Lamar Jackson has, he proved what he did last year. You know what I'm saying? So obviously the playoffs, was he was stunted in play calling. So
that's right. They only ran the ball like 8 times or something, right?
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Just because he's the MVP don't mean you just gotta throw that thing all the time.
They were playing Mahomes and the Chiefs. That's what it was. They got suckered in. They got suckered into a back and forth.
Now they got Derrick Henry, so
on the Baltimore line.
Yeah, load that box up and throw it now.
Didn't they get was Hollywood around last year, or did they get him too?
No, he was gone with them. He's been gone.
He's been
in Arizona.
Who's the wide receiver they got? Didn't they pick up somebody?
They had a young boy.
They drafted a kid last year.
This is going to drive me crazy now.
It was the kid from ECU, I thought. The fast kid.
Zay Flower. No, Zay Flower.
College. Boston. Oh, right. And then there was somebody else I thought they got in free agency. But having said all that, Baltimore needs to be like, basically, I've said for years, they've basically copied the Ron Rivera Panther blueprint. Well, just the Panther blueprint. Run the ball, stop the run. You do that, you're going to go a lot of places in football, regardless of the level you're playing football at, from Pee Wee to NFL. And Baltimore does that fairly well. Cincinnati, I don't think we left last season thinking they never fixed the O-line. They lost their number one running back. He's in Houston now, Joe Mixon. We don't know what's going to happen with Jamar Chase. Did they ever give him an extension? No, they haven't given him an extension yet, have they?
No,
I'm not sure.
And Cincinnati, their owner is known to be one of the more penny pinching owners in the league. You think they're going to give Jamar Chase a $30 million plus a year?
They don't have a choice.
they better.
They really don't. Yeah, they really don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So you got that with Cincinnati. So I probably would lean towards Lamar too in this division. Who's the quarterback you're using for this little thing for Pittsburgh? Is it Russell Wilson or is it Justin Fields?
Neither.
Well, Wilson hasn't practiced. His calf's got too big, so he's out with calf strain. And then Fields apparently has been lighting it up. So
you want me to be honest with you? Like I know how this Steelers situation is going to go down. I've pegged it since they got both of these guys because ideally it seems like this is Russell's job. He's going to be the starter. They're going to win games, and we're going to go on a little bit of a playoff run. They have the defense too, and then it just works perfectly because he's on a cheap deal, and then you can pass the torch to Justin Fields, right? Well, just when you think that everything's going to line up perfectly, it goes the complete opposite. So I have this weird hunch, and maybe we'll circle back to this week 17 and prove that I was wrong, but Russell's going to struggle. The offense can't score. And by the way, Arthur Smith, the former Falcons head coach, is their offensive coordinator. They just lost Roman Wilson to an injury. George Pickens is, I don't know, is he going to be their only option at receiver unless they trade for like Ayuk or something? If they struggle, if it's like week 8, week 9, they put in Justin Fields, you think, oh, he's the savior, and all of a sudden things collapse. And they go 9-8 just because they have Mike Tomlin, and quarterback questions continue. Like that's just what it seems like. They're going to be back in the quarterback market once again next offseason.
Damn. What about Cleveland? What do you think about Cleveland and Deshaun? Because again, we haven't seen Deshaun Watson be Deshaun Watson and going on 5 years.
Deshaun's not the same Deshaun. Like I mean, again, he can prove me wrong, but I think Cleveland will only be as good as the defense is going to take them because they have Myles Garrett, they have other pieces, the running game, they have a really good offensive line. Like I don't think they're going to win because of Deshaun Watson.
If this fails, because of his contract being fully guaranteed, does that become the worst trade in NFL history? Because right now, in my mind, the worst trade in NFL history is Herschel Walker from Dallas to Minnesota because of what Dallas got back with Jimmy Johnson basically going. And you'll never see this happen again. Like no one will ever do this again.
Took that back in the day, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I was a Cowboy fan back then. This trade literally built the Cowboys. Like so, the Cowboys when Jimmy Johnson came in, they didn't have anything but Herschel Walker. That was the only asset they had. So Jimmy Johnson, knowing this, he's like, okay, I'm gonna trade him and get as much as I can back. So he trades him to Minnesota for like 5 players. There was a couple of starters in there and like a couple of first-round draft picks. But what Jimmy Johnson did was he attached first-round picks to those players, meaning if these players don't make my roster, I get a first-round pick from you. So he knew going into the draft, none of those players were going to make the team. So he trades for those players. He cuts them all. He gets like 4 or 5 first-round picks from Minnesota over the next couple of years, couple of seconds or whatever. That's how you end up with Emmitt Smith. That's how you end up with Michael Irvin. That's how you end up with Darren Woodson. That's how you ended up with Russell Maryland. That's how you ended up with literally like they built the team off of this. And that's how in like 2 years, the Cowboys went from 1-15 or whatever to winning the NFC and being in the Super Bowl and triplets and all that stuff. But it all started from that Minnesota trade for Herschel Walker. And Walker had an average career after that in Minnesota and was never the same player he was in Dallas. But it was the fact that Jimmy Johnson attached picks to those players as concessions if they didn't make the team, knowing they weren't going to make the team. So he trades for these players and then cuts them all and then uses the picks to build the Cowboys. I don't even know if you can do that anymore. I think it's illegal. But
yeah, that sounds like an inside trade, baby.
That's the worst trade in NFL history in my mind. Well, not for Dallas. They won 3 Super Bowls off of it, but for Minnesota, it was. If this doesn't work out for
like
Cleveland,
Minnesota was over there trying to make Dallas great.
Yeah, they're probably still mad up there, like about it, like because that's a lot. It was like 6-7 players in it. There's a documentary on NFL Networks called The Great Train Robbery, and it goes through this whole thing about Jimmy Johnson and him building those '90s Cowboys. But if this don't work for Deshaun and the Browns. That contract was what, 200 and
300, wasn't it?
No, it was like 245 or something guaranteed, like all of it for Deshaun Watson, yeah, because he was like the first one to get a big one. Because remember, everybody was complaining he was resetting the market. It was especially guaranteed.
Oh, you're right. 230.
Schuyler, is there any talk going on as far as like the Giants? Don't we practice the Giants next week?
I thought it was the
Jets.
The Jets.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm trying to go down.
I can't wait to see that because I'm really excited to see what Aaron Rodgers does, if he's going to be practicing, how they're handling him, and all that.
It'll be a good litmus test too because they had joint practices with them last year, and the Jets kind of whipped up on them a little bit. So
remember, they were saying good stuff too. Remember, they were kind of like, "Yeah, Bryce Young looks pretty good." Blah blah blah. Was all that just window dressing? Like, because we saw it, we literally saw it. I mean, preseason week 1. Like,
at least from what I can remember, there were some very obvious moments in the trenches last year where they were just getting overwhelmed. Which
Carolina was,
Carolina was overwhelmed, which makes a lot of sense looking back on it. But that's what I'm saying. Like this year, how did they handle the Jets' defensive front and whatever they got coming from that front seven? Because I think this offensive line is much better, obviously. So we'll see.
Let's go around because we got to get here. We'll go around AFC North. If you have to pick right now, July 31st, 2004, who wins the AFC North? And I'm gonna keep track of this for us.
The Baltimore Ravens.
So we got one for Ravens for Stu. What you got, Schuyler?
I'll go Ravens.
Ravens.
Bengals keep it close though.
Okay, I'm gonna pick Ravens because I bring up this stat every year. The Baltimore Ravens regular season record with Lamar Jackson is something stupid. I don't even know what it is now, but it was like
they lose like 4 games a year,
something like that. Yeah, like he cannot lose in the regular season when he's healthy. So I'm gonna pick the Ravens too, and I need the Ravens. I'm trying to decide what I want more. Do I want Lamar to break through and get to the Super Bowl and win it to shut up his doubters, or do I want Pat Mahomes to do what's never been done before and three-peat as the Chiefs quarterback and literally enter the conversation of, am I the GOAT right now and I'm still playing? Like that's Michael Jordan driving past his statue on his way to work type GOAT. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a different.
Simple.
Tom Brady never got there.
Just have Mahomes win it this year, and then Lamar can take it next year.
As long as Patrick Mahomes playing, bro. I ain't betting against Patrick Mahomes ever.
I saw a meme. It's probably the best place to stop it. I saw a meme on Twitter. It was like the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks and their salaries now after Tua just signed this past week, and it had Tua on there and Jordan Love, who signed this week, and all of them are making like $50+ million a year, which my mind can't even wrap around that. Like for them to make that much for a 17-game season, well, 18 coming up here for the NFL. But it was like the top 5 or 6 of them. And then at the bottom, it was like end of every year. And it just shows a picture of Pat Mahomes on the podium, like holding the Super Bowl trophy. So it's like, it doesn't even matter. Like if you're going to pay Tua $55 million a year, the end result's going to be the same. It's going to be Pat Mahomes on the podium, thanking Kelsey, thanking Taylor Swift for showing up, thanking God, thanking Andy Reid, thanking his wife and everybody else. And let's try to do 4. Let's try to do 4 in a row. Let's do it something special. Chiefs Nation, blah. So that is what it is. We'll go ahead and get out. You my boy Blue says, write that script, Schuyler. So you can go ahead and put that in effect. We're all picking the Ravens for AFC North. We'll be back next week. I think somebody asked, Willie asked in the comments, when are we on so we can get the schedule straight? We don't know, Willie. We don't know where we are.
We don't.
Yeah, we have no idea when.
We don't even know what time it is.
we can't even tell time. We say 4 o'clock. Just expect us at 4:15. So if you next week, probably Tuesday. That's usually the day we go. Regular season will calm down.
Wednesday might be better for me if I have to think about it, but I think it's probably Wednesday.
I mean, whatever's best for y'all. I'm pretty flexible at this point of the season. Huh? Wednesday might be where we go for preseason, and the Tuesdays in the seasons where we've been, I think around 10:30 in the morning on Tuesdays is where we had been during the regular season, and we'll be there still. We'll have the Twitter thing figured out, catch us on all these different spots. The audio for this will be available on the Bleav Podcast Network here shortly. We'll get that available for you guys as well, and Bleav will probably have this on one of their their stations for NFL stuff over the course of the week. So you can catch us over a variety of ways. So we'll hop out of here from that. For Schuyler Callihan, from Jonathan Stewart, this is Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Keep pounding.